A blistering showdown erupted on GB News, with Lucy Connelly at the very heart of a storm that could shake Keir Starmer's leadership. What began as a fiery debate over free speech spiraled into explosive accusations of lies, hypocrisy, and political persecution. Connelly, freshly out of prison, pointed the finger straight at the Prime Minister, calling herself his political prisoner. Across the Atlantic, American voices jumped in, fueling the fire even further. By the end, the GB News studio was left stunned, jaws dropping as the confrontation hit its peak. But the real bombshell? That's still to come. Don't just watch, be part of the debate. Hit subscribe, stay tuned for the full story, and share your verdict in the comments below.
Did you know over 95% of our viewers aren't subscribed? Subscribing is free and helps us create more great content. Hit subscribe now and join our community.
Views with Lucy Connelly, because she did put out a tweet which was horrendous. She went to jail. Many people think that that was excessive, but she did plead guilty to inciting violence. And now she's out, and there'll be plenty of people that think, quite right, she should have gone to jail. But there'll be others that think that it was disproportionate, that the fact that she had said, you know, she talked about burning down migrant hotels, but she'd said, for all I care, that perhaps that was rhetorical. And obviously she's going to be talking to people in Washington. You imagine that she's going to have a pretty dim view of her treatment.
Yes, I believe, we're hearing the latest, that Lucy Connelly has said that she was held a political prisoner by Keir Starmer. So she's pointing the finger directly at the Prime Minister there. So just to repeat that there, Lucy Connelly is suggesting that she was held a political prisoner by Keir Starmer. In her latest comments now, she's of course out of prison, she's speaking freely. And let's go over to sort of compare that with what JD Vance has been talking about, because he was out tweeting not that long ago. A big social media influencer in the United States have been blocked, I think on X had his account removed, and JD Vance tweeted saying, listen, this account here has constantly criticised me. This man is quite famously criticising me and my wife and my family and everybody. However, I'll die for his right to be able to say what he says. Is there a sense that Britain, particularly perhaps amongst the Americans, that we treat free speech as a little bit of like a bit of a draconian tool, perhaps, to use on the public when we have sort of moved into this Orwellian nightmare? And JD Vance thinks that actually free speech should be free and that we should have this sort of a constitutional agreement, perhaps. I know some are even suggesting we should have a constitution here, First Amendment. But JD Vance perhaps being a little bit more on the side of the liberal argument on this.
Well, yes, and some of them think there's evidence of sort of two-tiered justice because of the case of the local Labour councillor who made a throat-slitting gesture. The difference was that he chose to plead not guilty, so it was in fact a different thing. But you can see how people could look at them side by side and think that there's one rule for somebody on the right and another rule for somebody on the left. Look, this is difficult. I mean, I was at a free speech event chaired by Nigel Farage in Parliament a few weeks ago with a number of Republican congressmen. I interviewed them after about free speech, and they were talking about the Online Safety Act. But, you know, this stuff is hard. The Online Safety Act, there is a duty to try to keep children safe. And also there's plenty of people in America that say, well, it's a bit rich coming from Trump in that Trump has controlled, basically has blocked certain press organizations from having access in the Oval Office, in the White House. You know, they've cut out certain outlets. So there's plenty of people think that there's issues with free speech in America, whatever. Plenty of people on the right in the States think that we have a problem. Yeah,
and I hear some universities are being challenged with their free speech as well. So yeah, you may very well be right there, Catherine. Statement from Lucy Connelly speaking to the Telegraph. She said, I was Starmer's political prisoner. I'm going to be joined now by former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Bill, bear with me just a second. So we've got a lot more coming up here, of course. Bill, here we are. We've got Bill now. Thank you, Bill. This statement here from Lucy Connelly saying that she is a political prisoner by Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. It's quite a politically charged statement there. Do you think there's any credence to that?
No, it's utterly untrue. I mean, firstly, there is rightly a separation of power between the courts and the government, and this was a court decision. It was incitement to violence by Lucy Connelly. She pleaded guilty to the most serious offence. After she was investigated, she put out on social media that she was going to play the mental health card, really demonstrating intent in what she was doing. She refused, and I've read the transcript of the appeal that she undertook. She refused to undertake what's called a Newton hearing because she didn't believe she would be a credible witness. And at the end of the appeal court, the judges in their conclusions said her testimony was incredible. That's what judges say when they believe someone is lying. So she most certainly was not a political prisoner. She was rightly dealt with by the courts because of deliberate incitement to violence.
OK, Bill, I just want to pick you up on this separation of powers thing, because this has been something that's been debated about a lot on the internet now. And many people pointing to Keir Starmer's statements during and after the riots. And he was using language like the far right when it came to some of the rioting, some of the protesting. And many people then pointing to say, well, he made a political statement about the courts being open in the same breath. So is this separation of powers as clear and separate as it should be? Or do we really need to have a look and say, actually, the Prime Minister shouldn't be making statements about the way the courts are run while he's in political office?
Prime Ministers down the ages have made statements about the operation of the court system and the need for punishment. But it is absolutely explicit in statute and law that judges, juries make decisions about whether or not people are guilty of particular offences and the sentences that are handed out. The alternative view, and when I was in government, there were many judicial decisions that I was really concerned about and the government was concerned about, but we couldn't intervene and change them. But the alternative view that, the government is controlling the courts, that would require independently appointed judges and juries to be in some kind of conspiracy with the government. And that's just a nonsense.
Yeah, Bill, let's go on to, because we talk about two-tier in this quite a lot. That's another word that's used quite often. And I guess the way in which that's phrased here is around Lucy Connelly's circumstances leading up to her case and of course, many other things that followed that, but including her appeal, her right to appeal denied, her bail denied. When we compare that, then this is what people are doing. They're comparing it to the Ricky Jones case, and many of those things were approved for him. People are saying that actually that's a result of two-tier. What do you make of those comments?
Well, the Ricky Jones case, let me be clear. I thought that what Ricky Jones said at a demonstration was utterly abhorrent and unacceptable. But the reality is his case is different. And your commentator has just made this point. Lucy Connelly pleaded guilty to the offence of incitement. Ricky Jones pleaded not guilty. He took the case through the courts, and he was acquitted. And he was actually acquitted by the jury with just half an hour's deliberation. Now, anyone who knows anything about the courts and the judicial processes knows that if a jury acquits within 30 minutes, in their view, and they are the ones who are charged with making these judgments, in their view, it's an open and shut case.